He's so happy to be back because he can watch his beloved cricket.
He loves cricket?
He loves cricket. We don't get it in America. Do you like cricket?
Love it.
Everyone loves it here. To me, it looks like a bunch of chemists running around on a lawn.
You kind of think about it, yeah.
He's transfixed. I want to phone in a prescription. And I'm happy to be in Melbourne, too, because last time we went to the Gold Coast. And the Gold Coast is beautiful, but I had kind of a problem with the beaches.
What sort of problem?
Well, the women go topless on beaches.
Yeah.
And in America, we don't do that. And everyone kept saying, Rita, you have to try it. But I was afraid. I mean, things crossed my mind like, I don't know, they've never been in the sun. They might catch fire. And I tried it once, but I was very careful. I wore lots of sunscreen. I taped the bottles to my body.
Good idea.
And then everyone, it wasn't enough that I went topless. They said, you have to go nude sunbathing.
Really?
Yes. Because then you don't get tan lines. That was their explanation.
So did you do it?
Well, what good is a tan without tan lines?
Yeah, come to think, you're pretty right, aren't you?
How do you show it off to your friends? I mean, what do you say? Look, compared to my eyeball, look how tan I am. And too much sun is supposed to make your skin leathery and wrinkly and old anyway. I used to look at those gorgeous 16-year-old girls just baking themselves on the beach and think, fry, you homewreckers, fry.
How does your family feel about you being a comedian?
It was a shock. It was a shock to everyone involved because I was so quiet. I was such a quiet child. Well, even worse than quiet, I was boring. Well, whenever we played doctor, people would always make me the anesthesiologist. You know, really all I had were two friends, and they were imaginary.
Really?
Yes, and they would only play with each other. I was very shy and introverted, and I was desperate for companionship. I was the only one in my class who would seesaw with the fat kid. Well, we didn't really seesaw, though. You know, we kind of just seed.
Yes, I understand.
I'd get on, and then she'd get on. Yeah. And then the fire department would get me out of the tree.
You didn't... You didn't always do comedy. You used to dance on Broadway.
I was a dancer. I really was a dancer. I still have these big calf muscles, and now I tell jokes. I don't know what to do with them. But it's true. I quit the ballet. I ballet. I was very classy, but I quit after I injured a groin muscle.
What happened?
Well, it wasn't mine. He's doing very well, though, really. He's a soprano with the Vienna Boys. And I was always a very sensible person. I never liked standing on your toe. Does that make sense to you, standing on your toe? You're provided with a foot there.
Yeah.
A whole foot. That's like looking at a king-size bed and saying, oh, no, I'll just sleep right on this bar stool. You know, that'll be fine. And I did other things
like what?
Before comedy got going. I was a stewardess for a while.
Stewardess, were you?
Well, on a helicopter. Really wasn't much of a challenge. There were like 5, 6 people tops, and I'd say, would you like something to drink? You would? Well, then we're going to have to land. And I was a waitress for a while, too.
Whereabouts?
Well, in a revolving restaurant.
Were you?
Yes, and I have a bad memory for faces. I used to say, oh, just shut up and eat it. You know, I don't really know. And now I love comedy because I work for myself, which is great, except when I call in sick, I know I'm lying.
Do you travel a lot in America?
It's just constant. It's constantly on planes. I'm constantly in hotels. Once I was on a tour of one-nighters, and, you know, a different hotel every night. I woke up one morning, and I called down for room service in room 702, and they said, we're sorry, ma'am, this hotel only has 4 floors. And I couldn't figure out what had happened. I couldn't make the connections, and I just said, does that mean you're not coming? And I'm constantly staying in hotels. I have little problems with maids. Somehow they look at the do not disturb signs, and they think they say, knock loudly on door with key. They do. So now when I travel, I bring my own do not disturb sign. Well, it's not really a sign. It's kind of this little noose with a maid in it.
Just hang that on the door. They get the message
They
today?
stay away. They stay. Once a maid actually called me on the phone, and she said, I didn't knock on your door because you had your Do Not Disturb sign up. So she said, is there anything I could get for you today? And I said, yes, you could get me a sign that says do not phone. That would be a good thing to get for
Rita,
me.
how do you like living in Beverly Hills, very swish area?
It's just the stupidest place in the world. Everyone is so looks conscious. I came home one day and my German Shepherd had gotten a nose job.
That bad?
He wanted to be a poodle. But things are ridiculously expensive. I mean, the parking meters take credit cards, really, in America. In this particular section, I went into a dress store one day, I'm not kidding, and I didn't know you needed an appointment to go into the store. I walked into the store, the sales lady said, do you have an appointment? And I just said, no. Do the dresses have something else to do today?
Rita, it's lovely chatting to you. It's lovely to have you back in Australia, and it gives us a great opportunity, those of us who come from Melbourne, to see you at the Hilton. And I hope that the Comedy Club really gets into gear right around Australia, because I think we all deserve to see Rita Rudner. And thank you for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Rita. Rita Rudner. And after this break, we welcome back to television.
Yeah. Well, you're in.
Power of the male model, and such is the power of Quentin Crisp, to attract every eye, even if the eye is outraged. Above all, he realized the importance of contrasting exquisite clothes with a lived-in environment. He found that gas range in a little place he knows just over the hedge from a lay-by on the M4. Once again, the clothes are impeccable, but it's that chair that sets them off. What set it off was a cigarette. But Quentin Crisp survived the blaze, as he has survived everything. He has dared to be himself, and he's here tonight, the hero of one of the best television programs ever made. He's wearing clothes, but in all other respects, it's the naked civil servant himself. Quentin, you were a model, a naked civil servant. Was it a good career for a young man?
No, I wouldn't say that. I didn't wear clothes. For most of the time I was at work, I wore nothing. I was a model in the art school.
Uh-huh.
The first duty of the model is to look like the work of the students. It isn't easy.
Mel hates being alone at any time. Is solitude important to you?
Oh, absolutely. If I did not live alone, when would I recharge my batteries? Because in New York, every moment that you're out of doors, you're with people. Everybody talks to you everywhere you go. So you can't just wander through the streets in a daze. You have to be consciously available. When I was young, I used to walk through the streets scorning people before they could scorn me. But now, like everybody who's been on television, in public I wear an expression of fatuous affability.
I'll go along with that. Do you have a big house in New York?
No, I live exactly in New York as I lived in London, in one room, in a rooming house. And now I live on the Lower East Side, 1 block from the Bowery. My agent said, you can't live here, but I don't think she knows how low I've already sunk.
How big is this little apartment near the Bowery?
About the size of this carpet, about square.
And there's room for just you? No, you don't live with anybody?
I don't live with anybody. I never found a way of being wise, witty, kind, and beautiful for 24 hours a day.
I'll give you the secret later, don't worry.
So you're against cohabitation on principle, yeah?
I think it's a mistake. If you cohabit, you will be left in the end only with the things about which you disagree. Finally, when you want the soap on the left-hand side of the wash basin and your partner wants it on the right, there will be a divorce.
What's the Crisp guide to good housekeeping? What are your household tips for living in one room?
Well, never, of course, do any housekeeping. First of all, never sweep the room where you live, because after the first 4 years, the dirt doesn't get any worse.
Has that been your experience, Mel?
After about the first 10 minutes, the dirt doesn't get any worse in my place.
You actually let the dust accumulate, do you?
You let it accumulate, and it will not cover the surfaces you use most often.
Uh-huh.
The dust will be under the table, but not on the table, because you constantly use it. The dust accumulates like snow. It drifts into the corners. Straight away from the door to the fire, to the stove, to the window.
How long did you have that London flat without, that London room without cleaning it?
41 years.
You must have tunneled in from the door. What is it that you love about New York?
The people. In New York, everybody is your friend. It's absolutely wonderful. I once was on a bus, and a man came over, and very discreetly, I thought, crouched down and asked me to write my name on a piece of paper. Then he went back to his seat. And a woman opposite said, "Well, who are you?" And I said, "Who indeed?" I thought he was asking for an autograph. He was. Why? I said, "You must ask him." He was sitting that distance. But nobody pretended they weren't listening. See, it was utterly un-English. Finally, she turned to the bus and she said, "Well, who the hell is he?" And everybody laughed. And when I got off the bus and passed her, I said, "I'm sorry I wasn't anybody." And then even the driver laughed.
So it's showtime. But I'm surprised you feel so safe, because it's the most violent city in the Western world. And you had a lot of violence to put up with when you were young here, didn't you?
There's a difference. When everybody in New York who isn't hitting you over the head is your lifelong friend. But when people hit you over the head, in America, it's for money. And whatever is done for money is sacred.
I see. Yeah.
But when they hit you over the head in England, it's a criticism.
I think there really is a difference between the English and the Americans. Huh?
Oh, total.
So they're tolerant.
They're tolerant. They're more than tolerant. They're friendly. You see, when the English say Americans are rude, they don't understand the system. Americans say London is the most civilized city in the world, but Americans haven't learned that in England, politeness is a way of dealing with people you don't like. In America, people are rude to you when they don't like you, and nice to you when they do. And they feel free to say where are you from, what you do, and how much you get. If you don't want to answer these questions, evade them. If someone says to you how much you get and you don't want to answer, you say, "Not enough." Ha, ha, ha.
But you still need your privacy. I mean, how do you protect it? They're very nosy people, aren't they? How do you protect your privacy? You draw the blinds or what?
No, privacy is for invading. I don't want to be private. I want to be totally known. You've only got one life, and you must try to meet everybody in the world before you die.
Is that the purpose of style? You're always talking about style and the need for it and how to acquire it. What's your definition of style? What is it?
To me, style, of course, is never stylishness. I wouldn't dare. To me, stylishness is an idiom which arises spontaneously from yourself, but is deliberately maintained. It's a question of coming to terms with who you are and then finding a way of telling the world.
Yeah. Have you consciously tailored your style to your, shall we say, circumstances? Well, I mean, being rugged, we've established that you're always were a rugged type like myself, yeah?
No, I don't. I mean, I think I'm true to myself in as much as I put on the first thing I think of. So there's a certain sort of random honesty about it, you know? I mean, I'm prepared for a game of tennis or a board meeting. You know? So either eventuality would be no problem. In fact, actually, to be honest, I tend to get most of my clothes out of sort of telly shows I do, and I just sort of buy them off them. This is from Minder, I think. This one. That's from the socks are from Play School. Underpants from Tomorrow's World.
You've often said that Hollywood stars personify style. Which ones did you mean? Who are your favourites?
I have met some of them. I don't know any of them, but I have met people like Mr. Lemon. But the great stars, of course, are women.
Which ones?
When Orson Welles was asked why there were now no stars, he said, because there are now no women. And of course there aren't any women now. Women have become people, which was a terrible mistake.
I think it is true that when you go to the movies now, you do tend to see the kind of women up there that you already know. And what about Carmen Miranda? You're a Carmen Miranda fan, aren't you?
Oh, yes. You see, a star is somebody you could not think of for yourself if you sat up all night. You could never have envisioned Carmen Miranda.
Well, no, indeed.
For anyone who never saw her, half of her height was the platforms under her shoes. The other half was a lot of bananas on her head. And in between these, she wore stockings made of fishnet so wide whole haddocks could escape.
And you sat there mesmerized. What influence did she have on you? What did she bring out in you?
She brought out in me my love for the far-fetched. Yes, the exotic.
Marlon Brando influenced my life deeply. Are you okay there, Mill?
I'm fine.
Can
I
go to the water? Yes, absolutely.
Thanks very much.
Because I want to tell you about me and Marlon Brando, and I want you to be. Because it's not generally known that Brando had this profound effect on my life.
How was that, Clive?
Well, it was like this. You can keep. I know where it goes from here.
Tell us about it in your own words.
No, there's not a lot to say. It's just that it was the style that did it. I mean, I didn't really care about the part. I saw all the movies, and it just influenced my way of standing, my way of being. Of course, because as I used to tell the girls I knew, we were very similar facially, except that my eyes were very close together. Stella, do you want to dance? Anyway, it was the way I came out of the cinema. I mean, the effect lasted. When the movie was over and I came out of the cinema, you knew I'd been watching Brando because I couldn't come through a door without slouching against each door jamb. You know? It's going to be very tricky if the door's closing behind you. But it influenced me deeply. And
it's very odd because his style, I mean, his style of acting, of course, as most people know now, was completely dictated by reading the lines off of camera, which is very interesting. Once you know that and you watch the performances,
it's quite.
I mean, yeah, I mean, I like that, and then
It is true about Brando, because in Mutiny on the Bounty, it's the reason he's looking down the rail of on deck. You look at the rail all the time. Is that the script is on the rail,
Really?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
And in Godfather, they solved the problem by writing the script on the shirt of the guy he was talking to.
What was that marvellous American television series with that marvellous Wilfrid Hyde-White in it, where he was the lawyer? Did you ever see that? Because Wilfrid Hyde-White's a wonderful one for having his line, and he sat at a gigantic desk with hundreds of drawers, and just looked like the busiest actor in the world because through any speech he's opening drawers and closing, picking up papers, picking up phones with floor managers going, giving his lines through the phone.
Quentin, you're an actor now, aren't you? You've become a star.
Well, I'm not really an actor. I go on stage, but I could never act. I have no idea why other people do the things they do. I can only go on and talk to audiences. I can only do what the theatre alone can do. The only difference between the theatre and the movies is the theatre can speak to the audience.
Yeah. You're a man of how shall I put this? Delicate. You're a man of a certain age, not in your first youth.
76.
76 years old. You're 76 years old. How do people's attitudes towards you change as you get older? Are they mellowing?
Oh, yes. They are nicer to me as I grow older. And, of course, the great message is there is an advantage in growing old. As it's toward the end of the run, you can overact appallingly.
Do you do anything to prolong life? Are you injections, facelifts, stuff like that?
No, no.
Because Americans do, don't they?
They do indeed. No, I eat what I'm given, I wear what I'm given, and I just stagger on.
Well, are you going to grow old with dignity?
I don't know what a name will be. But I hope to grow very, very old indeed. No. I doubt it.
I can't really improve on that for the end of the discussion. There is a lot more that we can discuss about. Beyond the grave, for example, we can talk about heaven, hell, retribution, stuff like that.
Hell.
But we've run out of time, unfortunately, and it's been wonderful. And the moment has come to say, Quentin, please.
And I will see the... Oh, no, don't be crying.
All right, Act Two, Ena.